So Apple is allegedly getting ready to do something that they have never done before in the iPhone's history. For the first time since the OG iPhone came out in 2007, there will be no standard iPhone launching this fall. No iPhone 18 in September. If you want a new flagship level iPhone in 2026, you'll have three choices. The $1,200 iPhone 18 Pro, the $1,400 18 Pro Max, or the, I'm just guessing, $2,500 foldable that Apple seems to be betting their entire mobile business on. Everything else, aside from the E, delayed until spring 2027. And this isn't just a scheduling quirk. This is Apple fundamentally rethinking how they'll sell phones, and a massive product failure I think just proved exactly why they needed to do this. All right, so let me back up. Here's what happened. Apple was already planning, allegedly again, to split their iPhone launch cycle for 2026. Pro models and the foldable in the fall, base models in the spring. And the idea was that they can manage an increasingly bloated product lineup, optimize manufacturing, spread revenue across 2 quarters instead of 1, and all the RAM pricing issues that have gone on over the past 6 to 12 months probably push those plans even faster. All their standard corporate strategy stuff. Except the iPhone Air launched in September 2025, and it has become one of the biggest flops in iPhone history. And suddenly Apple's plan to split the release went from interesting strategy to thank goodness we are doing this. The iPhone Air was supposed to be Apple's design comeback. Ultra thin, gorgeous, first major iPhone redesign released since the iPhone 10 back in 2017. I think they were counting on blowing people away with this by how impossibly thin it was. Except barely anybody bought it. And I really mean barely anybody. Within 2 months, Apple suppliers shut down nearly all their production lines. Foxconn dismantled all but 1.5 of its iPhone Air assembly lines by the end of October. Luxshare stopped production entirely. The Air costs starting at $999. For that price, you get 1 camera, a small battery, and a speaker that is not great. Meanwhile, iPhone 17 at $799 has 2 cameras, all-day battery life, really not many compromises at all. On paper, the Air didn't make sense. Too expensive and too compromised at the same time. But a weird thing actually happened. The people who actually used the Air, a lot of them loved it. I was skeptical at first when I first got one. How could a phone this thin with a battery that small possibly work as a daily driver? I really expected to not like it. I thought I would switch back to my Pro after a week, except I didn't. Once I started carrying the Air, I didn't want to go back. There's something about picking up a device that feels impossibly light, that disappears in your pocket, that just sort of feels better in your hand kind of every single time you use it. And obviously there were the compromises. The battery life was tight. I missed the extra camera, especially telephoto, but the experience of actually using it day to day was amazing. And I wasn't alone. If you go read reviews from people who actually sort of lived with the Air for sort of more than a few days, a lot of them said the same thing. They loved it despite its flaws. So I want to take a real quick break. If you're thinking about picking up an iPhone 18, it's something worth setting up right away. So I travel a decent amount for work. One of the most annoying things is paying for 5 different streaming services, not being able to use any of them because I'm in a different country. That's why I'm using this video sponsor, NordVPN. You already know NordVPN. Pop it open, connect to a server back home. Suddenly all my stuff works. Problem completely solved. But that's the obvious use case. The thing that actually surprised me is a feature they've got built in called Threat Protection Pro. Runs in the background and blocks phishing sites and fake online stores before you even land on them. And it works whether you're connected to a VPN server or not. So if you ever accidentally clicked on that link that feels a little off and thought, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, this catches all that stuff for you. They also have something called Dark Web Monitor. It alerts you if any personal information shows up for sale anywhere. So be prepared to get a lot of alerts. It's a fun thing to think about. The setup here takes less than a minute. Download the app, sign in, you are good. Go to nordvpn.com/Rettinger or check the link in the description. You will get, you always get something, an exclusive deal plus 4 months free. It's also a 30-day money-back guarantee, so not really any risk to you at all. nordvpn.com/Rettinger. That's my slash. So the problem wasn't that the Air was a bad phone, because it's not. The problem was that nobody bought it to find that out. On a spec sheet next to the iPhone 17 and 17 Pro, it looked like a terrible deal. 1 camera versus 2, smaller battery for $200 more than the base model iPhone. Apple is asking people to pay a pretty nice premium for an experience they couldn't understand until they held it and then used it for a while. And in a world where people buy phones based on specs and price comparisons on a carrier website, that's a hard sell. They'd spent years trading customers that more cameras, bigger batteries, and pro features were what mattered. That's all their marketing campaigns have been for the past 4 years. Then they released a phone that was actually, maybe a phone that feels good in your hand matters more. I don't think anybody believed them. And the Air failed, not because it was bad, because Apple couldn't figure out how to sell it. So here's where I think it gets interesting. So after the Air bombed, Apple had to delay the iPhone Air 2 to spring 2027 to allegedly redesign the whole thing. Add a second camera, fix the battery, add vapor chamber cooling, and make it a phone that people would want to buy, to test out. That delay fit perfectly into Apple's already planned split release strategy. Then in spring 2027, around March-ish, we should get the iPhone 18, the redesigned Air 2, and a new budget model that would probably be the iPhone 18e. By that point, Apple will have 6 distinct phone models on sale at the same time. 6. That's not a product line, that is a whole separate entity inside of the company. And we're already kind of seeing this play out a bit in real time. The iPhone 17e is reportedly dropping any minute now. By the time you watch this might already be out. A $599 budget phone that's completely separate from the fall cycle. That, I think, was Apple testing the waters on a staggered release before they go all in this September. From a manufacturing perspective, it spread things out, that makes sense. Especially when you're trying to launch your first foldable, and I'm guessing you'll need every bit of production capacity kind of focused on nailing it. But this is also, I think, Apple admitting that the product lineup has become messy. Too many models in each other's sales. The Air was supposed to live between the base iPhone and the Pro. Instead, I think it competed with both and then lost to both. Splitting the release is how they kind of make sure that doesn't happen again. The part that I think should worry them, though, if you want the latest iPhone this fall, $1,200 minimum for the 18 Pro. No budget option, no middle ground. And for almost 20 years, September meant new iPhones at every price point. You get the latest, whether you had $800 or $1,400. That is done. And look, people don't upgrade on Apple's schedule. Obviously, they upgrade when their carrier deal is up or when they crack their screen. You tell people that the affordable one comes out in 6 months, so they're just gonna walk into Samsung or pick up a Pixel phone. Puts a lot of pressure on this guy, the iPhone Fold. I 3D printed a model just based on some CAD leaks. It looks like the Pixel Fold. It looks like the Surface Duo. It's a familiar design. Opens up like a book. When it's closed, outer display should be about 5.5 inches. Open it up, obviously that's not gonna be in the middle. Nearly 8 inches diagonal at 7.8 inches. That's basically an iPad mini that folds in half and fits in your pocket. It can run iPad apps, which is sort of one thing that no Android foldable has been able to sort of match. You shouldn't have phone apps that are just sort of made bigger. That is a massive advantage from day one, the developer support that this should have. The hinge is the part that I keep coming back to. So Samsung showed off a creaseless foldable display at CES and then pulled it from the show floor. Both the reports say Apple is using that exact Samsung display technology, and apparently Apple straight up refused to ship a foldable until they could make a crease that's invisible. Didn't care what the cost was. There are rumors about a laser drilled metal support plate under the flexible OLED to distribute stress across the fold. They actually pulled that off. If you open this thing up and there's generally no crease, that's a moment. That's kind of the thing that I think would sell a product all by itself. And I do kind of want to admit that even just holding a 3D printed model, things start to click together. Kind of I sat here doing this a lot while I was watching TV. My wife asked me, she always does, what I'm doing. I didn't have a good answer. There's a version of this phone that changes what an iPhone is or can be. Not a better camera, not a faster chip, but a fundamentally different relationship with a device. A phone that becomes a tablet and disappears back in your pocket. And if Apple nails this execution, this is the most exciting iPhone since the iPhone 10, and that is a big if though. But generally I keep switching back to a normal slab phone. I can pull out fast, zoom in, fire off 10 shots and shove it back into my pocket. Can I do that on the foldable? I guess probably. Am I shooting with the outer screen, which is small, or am I unfolding the thing on the bleachers every time, Zach steps up to the plate, or when Olivia's at a dance show and I want to show her a video? Is unfolding a phone actually better than just using a regular one? I don't really know yet, and I've used a lot of generations. The question isn't, can we build a better foldable, but why does anybody need one? Samsung's had 7 generations to figure that out, and I would argue they still haven't nailed it for most people. The price ain't helping either though. Every leak puts it between $2,300 and $2,500. That's Mac Studio money. That's 2 iPhone 17s. You're paying that for a first-gen product from a company that has never made one before, going up against Samsung's 7th attempt that costs less. Apple doesn't get credit for being first. They're trying to get credit for being best, and pulling off best on a version at this price point is a tall order. Because 5, 6, 7 years from now, no one's gonna remember who did it first. Only gonna remember who did the foldable best. And there's also still a software problem. Siri is embarrassing. Apple Intelligence has been a punchline. It doesn't work well. Obviously, bringing Google Gemini to help, which is probably the right call, but it's also an admission that the company famous for controlling everything just can't crack this one alone. Samsung and Google have been shipping AI that actually works for a long time. So Apple showed up to a $2,500 knife fight, and they're behind on the software it's supposed to make the hardware worth it. So here's what I actually think is going to happen. I think the Fold is going to be a gorgeous piece of hardware. I would bet anything on that. Apple's been working on this thing for years, and they've been obsessively patient about the crease. And when you open it for the first time, I think people are going to lose their minds. Build quality, display, thinness. People who buy it, they're probably gonna love it. Same thing that happened with the Air, except at 2.5 times the price. Same problem here too. Not enough people are going to want to spend $2,500 on a first-gen device when Samsung's been at this for over half a decade. I think the Fold becomes a phone that proves Apple can do it. And then the Fold 2 a year later at $1,800 with a third camera and the real software refinement becomes the one actual people buy. And the split release strategy will probably stick around either way, because it fixes real lineup problems, even if the Fold doesn't blow out their sales numbers out of the water. But the moment of truth comes in spring 2027. When the regular iPhone 18 finally drops, we find out that people who wanted an affordable iPhone in September actually waited, or if they just went and bought whatever Samsung is selling. And if you're planning to upgrade this fall and you don't want to spend pro money, clear your schedule for spring 2027. Because for the first time in iPhone history, that regular new iPhone are used to buying every year, it's not coming when you think it is.